Good day panelists and viewers. So today I will be showing you a video presentation with respect to my thesis entitled Talapang, AR/VR Frog Dissection Software in Teaching STEM Biology. My name is Maria Fatima, a Master Biology student from the Philippine Normal University. So here would be the summary of my panelists' comments and suggestions during my colloquium. We will scan through it, and then after that, we will proceed to the introduction part. So, what is dissection? Dissection is the process of cutting apart a certain deceased species of animal. This is different from vivisection because when you speak about vivisection, you are pertaining to cutting apart a live species of animal. So, what is virtual reality? Virtual reality focuses on three elements, which is visualizing, involving oneself in the medium, and interacting with the virtual world. It is different from augmented reality because augmented reality focuses on lifting up the pictured image, which makes it more realistic and three-dimensional. So, frog dissection is considered as an act of animal cruelty. So, PETA is considering it as a not ethical and a not moral process. So that's the reason why we don't need to dissect frogs in schools. Because McCollum said that in 1988, he focused on lecture method in teaching anatomy rather than the frog dissection part itself. So also, there was a study by Veselup and Demirhan in 2016 about the reactions of sophomore science teachers who have experienced dissecting frog species. So their positive reactions were being curious, interested, and excited in conducting the experiment. Their negative reactions were the feeling of disgust, fear, stress, sadness, and displeasure, as well as they lost their appetite, felt dizzy and dizzy, and their hands trembled while performing the experiment, and their mouth dried. So here are my research objectives. So I would just let you see it and view it, and after that, we will be proceeding to the research statements or questions. So here is my illustration of a triangulation method which is used in my study. So I utilize both qualitative and quantitative ways to gather my data. So here is my methodology. It's just a simple methodology. Actually, I had a hard time in my methodology process, but luckily I was able to finish all of it. So kindly browse my methodology. So here would be the summary of findings and discussion. So I was able to address each and every objectives that were presented a while ago in my research. So in objective 1, there is really a need to develop an AR/VR frog dissection software. Why? Because according to a student respondent, knowing that frogs have their own lives, they should not be captured and cut their body parts for educational purposes. And they were also complaining about the smell of formalin and its effects to us. That's the reason why a student suggested that maybe modern technology can be used as an alternative for actual frog dissection. Now, in Objective 2, the AR/VR frog dissection software was developed by an IT developer from Bataan. And then, in Objective 3, this particular newly developed software was validated by content experts. And fortunately, they were able to give this particular software a grade of 4, which is equivalent to very good. So in Objective 4, the multiple choice exam was also validated. And luckily, it's an average exam. So this indicates that the exam is not too easy and not too hard. So in Objective 5, we were able to determine the pretest scores of student respondents. So for the MO group, the mean value for the pretest was 16.64. For the AVI group, it's 21.04. And for the ABG group, that was 13.56. So for the VARC scores of the student respondents, so actually, these student respondents have a multimodal learning styles, meaning there are some VARC learning style which overlaps each other. But I was able to obtain their scores based from the amount of visual, oral, read or write, and kinesthetic learnings. So in Objective 7, I was able to obtain the respondents' profile based from their biological age and biological gender. So for Objective 8, it was found that for the three groups, for MOABI and ABG group, it shows that there is a significant difference between the pre-test and the post-test scores, which is shown here in the graph. It's clearly shown here that there's a big difference between the pre-test and post-test scores of the students for the three groups. So for Objective 9, the significant difference between the obtained post-test scores among the three groups were identified, and it was found out that there was no significant difference between the obtained post-test scores among the three groups. So for Objective 10, the intrinsic motivation scores per category was obtained from the three groups, and this was measured based from the different criteria presented in my research. So these are perceived competence, effort or importance, pressure or tension, perceived choice, and value or usefulness. For Objective 11, it was found out that there is a significant difference which were obtained from the intrinsic motivation scores among the three groups. So for the student respondents, actually, they were able to give positive feedback in terms of the utilization of the ARVR crowd dissection method. So a student said that, I feel that I have learned something new about frogs, and this is really good. So for the conclusions and recommendations, these are my conclusions. So number 1 is that there was a significant difference between the pre-test and post-test scores for the students who utilized the module only. For number 2, there was a significant difference between the pre-test and post-test scores for the students who utilized AVI. And it's the same thing for number 3, there was a significant difference between the pre-test and post-test scores for students who utilized AVG. So in number 4, there was no significant difference in the post-test scores between the three groups. So meanwhile, the mean result of the post-test scores among the three experimental groups were almost the same. In number 5, there was a significant difference between the intrinsic motivation of students among the three groups. This means that the students have varied levels of motivation per group. In number 6, it was surprising that the student who had an oral learning style got the highest result for the post-test on the module-only group, while most of the kinesthetic learners got the highest score for the post-test after they utilized the ARVR crowd dissection software. These are my recommendations. Number 1, recommendation for the improvement of the ARVR crowd dissection software would be the developed ARVR software should be improved in terms of its contents as well as ease of usage. VR glasses should be utilized in a computer laboratory with 1 VR glass per student. The ARVR software should be modified so that any kind of cellular phone can view it. Include other organ systems of the SAD software and make it more detailed. Make the crowd software more realistic. Number 2, if similar studies should be conducted, future researchers must use sufficient time to gather data, collect data from different schools, and compare the results of the study. Try to request other teachers to be the one who will demonstrate the usage of a given software to the class. The researcher will just observe. Measure other variables like extrinsic motivation, test anxiety, persistence level, biology readiness, and the like. So the results of the study prove that ARVR enhances the students' academic achievement and enables them to be motivated to learn the different concepts in biology, specifically anatomy and physiology. Utilization of the ARVR crowd dissection software along with its module is highly recommended to be utilized in a classroom setting as an alternative tool for the traditional frog dissection experiment. So this ends my presentation. I hope you learned something from my research. May God bless all.